What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. All right, I meant to do this video last night. All right, shout out to Ticket TV because he did a video talking about this. I meant to do a video right after it. Fucking fell asleep. You know what I'm saying? So wasn't able to do it. But the fact that Vince Carter will not be selected as an honorary All-Star is a travesty, and it's really disrespectful to the career that he's had and the legacy that he's had. Now, I'm not saying that Vince Carter is on the same stratosphere, excuse me, as last year's honorary All-Stars, Dwayne Wade and Dirk Nowitzki. To me, Dirk and D Wade are about in that 20 to 25 range all time, somewhere in that trajectory. You could argue a little bit lower, especially for Wade, maybe like 30. It's somewhere in that range. I don't put Vince in the top 50. At least he's not in my top 50. I would put Vince more in that top. I would put Vince a little bit ahead of his cousin, Tracy. I would put Vince maybe top 65, maybe somewhere in that range. Off the top of my head, I would have to sit down and actually extend my top 50 and go further with it, because you can make an argument for a lot of the guys in the past to put over Vince. But somewhere in that top 60 to 70 range, I think Vince would be at, which is still very fucking high. So Vince should be an honorary All-Star. First of all, you got to look at what he meant to the league and how he helped to save the league in a way after Jordan's retirement, because that was something that the NBA, David Stern, all those guys were concerned about, was post-Jordan. They were concerned about the NBA after Jordan would retire. And here you had this guy who had so many similarities to Michael Jordan. Here was this guy who was, like Jordan, playing college in North Carolina. I'm going to tell you something, man. The last time I regularly watched college basketball was when Vince Carter was playing in North Carolina. I hate to say it, but that's pretty much the last time I was regularly watching it. Up until like the late 90s into 2000. Then afterward, I just kind of stopped following college. I think it has something to do with age. You know what I'm saying? Like, you just start looking at these guys differently. I don't want to say you hero worship when you're younger, but, you tend to look at these guys as being, different when they're older than you. Then when they're starting to be like the same age as you or then younger, you start looking at them differently. That's all. But anyway, Vince Carter was amazing in college, man. Like the athleticism, the dunks. I mean, don't get me wrong, the dunks he did in the NBA were amazing, but a lot of the dunks that he did in college, man, I remember in college, man, his dunks were, if I, someone can, maybe I'm romanticizing his collegiate career a little bit too much, but if I remember correctly, a lot of his dunks in college were even more powerful than in the NBA. Like, as Vince got older, he started, don't get me wrong, he still dunked, but I would say after the mid 2000s, he dunked less frequently. And as he expanded his game, he became more and more of a jump shooter with the occasional dunk to the basket. But he didn't dunk the same as he did, say, in 2008 as he did in 2002, 2003, 2001, 2000. But in college, man, this motherfucker was power dunking every fucking where. But I remember the connections with MJ with North Carolina. And then when he came onto the scene in 99, that abbreviated season, which should have been the 98-99 season, um, Vince was being groomed as the face of the NBA. Because you have to remember something. Um, at that time with the Lakers, Kobe wasn't quite Kobe yet. He was still an exciting young player, but he was still kind of in Shaq's shadow. Allen Iverson going into that season was a very exciting young player, but he was playing with the Sixers, who at that time was still a bad team. Coming into that abbreviated season, they weren't a good team yet. Uh, Outside of Jordan and the Bulls, a lot of the older guys were starting to retire or fall off a little bit. Charles Barkley, I think that's the year that. Trying to think off the top of my head. That's the year that they teamed up with Scottie Pippen. But those guys were getting old. You know, uh, Utah was still getting. They were. I guess they were still a power, but you could tell that Utah's window of opportunity had closed when Jordan hit that shot over Brian Russell. You still had Gary Payton, but the thing about it, you didn't have that marquee guy at that time that they thought could carry the league into the next century. And they looked at Vince Carter and was like, okay, well, this guy looks like he can be another Jordan. You know what I'm saying? At least the way his game is, the physical similarities. So from 1999 to about 2001, Vince Carter was the de facto face of the league. Now, there were other emerging stars. Okay, you had your Stevie franchise. AI started to emerge as a star as the Sixers got better. Um, you know, you had Kevin Garnett, even though the team wasn't really that good, but you had Kevin Garnett. You had Tim Duncan, but Tim Duncan's personality kind of didn't lead to him being a superstar as far as like with endorsements and all that. But you can make the argument that out of the crop of guys, Tim was the best player. And then later on, of course, Kobe would, you know, make that a serious debate and argument. But my point is, the league was pushing Vince to be that face, man. He was exciting to watch. You know what I'm saying? He put on a show on a nightly basis. I remember it was a TV game. It was a televised game, and it was the 99-2000 season. It was early in that season. I think it was a game when they were still, the NBC still had the contract with the NBA. I recall it being a Sunday game. And Vince scored 51 points on national television against the Phoenix Suns. And I remember the commentator, I think it was Marv Albert. People can fact check me on this one. I think it was Marv Albert. He said something like, "This is Vince Carter's first career 50-point game." Michael Jordan had 39 in his career. This is Vince's first, and we'll see what's in store for the young Vince Carter. Something like that, right? So you could see how they were angling to connect the two. But I think that probably frustrated Vince because that's a really tall order. That's a really tall order to live up to. Everybody's not built the same mentally as Kobe Bryant, who wants to supersede Jordan. Uh, Vince wasn't made up mentally like that, you know. Um, but Vince was still a great player. Starting in the 99-2000 season, Vince had 10 consecutive years of averaging 20 points or better, all the way to 2008-2009 season. He was an 8-time All-Star. He was a 99 Rookie of the Year. He would have been a 9-time All-Star had there been an All-Star game in 99. But of course, there was no um, All-Star game in the abbreviated 99 season. Um, One of the things I remember the most vividly about Vince Carter, the greatest performance arguably ever in a slam dunk contest. And I know people will bring up Spud Webb. People will bring up Dominique Wilkins. Dominique Wilkins versus MJ. Um, but as far as one guy having overall dominance over a particular contest, I think that there's no competition. All right. Even with Dominique, he still had to contend with Jordan. You know what I'm saying? I just can't think of another guy who dominated the competition like Vince did in that slam dunk contest in 2000. When we first saw those first couple of dunks, remember we hadn't really seen those type of dunks before in 2000. We hadn't really seen anybody do shit like that. And to an extent, we still haven't really seen anybody do some of those dunks that he's done. And then later on in 2000, when he won the Olympic gold, I think it was in Sydney that year. I get a little mixed up. I think it was Sydney, Australia that year. That dunk he did over Frederick Weiss. Vince was a phenomenon, man. From 1999 to about 2001, Vince Carter was a phenomenon. Now, what happened in 2001 is starting in about 2001, that's when you started seeing Kobe emerge. That's when he no longer wanted to be in the shadow of Shaq. He wanted to emerge. He had been working on his game relentlessly, and he wanted to showcase his game. And that's when you first saw Kobe. And that's when people started saying, hey, man, I know Vince is Vince, but look at what Kobe's doing. And then you started seeing AI emerge. AI was carrying, you talk about a guy that had nobody to play with. You know what I'm saying? Like, AI literally dragged that team to the NBA Finals on his back. That was the greatest little man run I've ever seen, ever, as far as like a season. Don't get me wrong, now the Dikembe Mutombo was big too because he had to rebound a lot of those misses and give the Sixers extra possessions. But AI's offense and his leadership, coupled with the overall team defense of the Sixers, dragged that team to the finals. But that series that he and Vince had in the semifinals, one of the greatest series I have ever seen in my life. I suggest any of my younger subscribers to just Google Allen Iverson, Vince Carter 2001, and it should pop it up. They both put on remarkable shows in that series. Vince had a 50-point game in that series where he hit 8 3-pointers in the first half. All right, and remember, this is 2001. All right, so we didn't see dudes go off like that from downtown like that because the shot wasn't as focused upon as it is now. Yeah, so Vince had a 50-point game. Allen Iverson had 2 50-point games in that series. Yeah, I mean, these guys were going at it. And it went all the way down to the wire to the last possession of Game 7. And if Vince shot had fallen, I think it was a turnaround. I think it was like a turnaround jumper near the baseline or something like that. And if that shot had fallen, the Raptors would have advanced to the conference finals, but the shot fell, I think, short or a little bit long. I can't remember. I think it was short. And the Sixers won. But it was an amazing series. But the thing that happened, though, Kobe started becoming the face of the league for a while. All right. Then Kobe, Shaq, AI, Tracy McGrady, his cousin started superseding him. His cousin started winning scoring titles, doing all these great things in Orlando. Jason Kidd with the Nets. And Vince Carter was still out there, but like I said, Vince started wanting to stretch his game out. He wasn't dunking as much. And he still remained a great guy, a great player. But the NBA wasn't focusing as much on him as they did before. He wasn't obviously going to be the next Michael Jordan. And that was the case. You know what I'm saying? But Vince stayed a great player for a very long time. Um, and then the one thing about Vince that's different from a lot of these other guys, Vince didn't really have that ego about him. So it was easy for Vince to transition from being a superstar to an all-star to a role player to basically now a mentor, which is the role that he's serving now with the Atlanta Hawks. And I understand that Vince has said that he doesn't really want to be an honorary all-star, but Vince, you deserve to be one. Okay, that's coming from a long-time fan. I've watched your entire career. I watched you all the way from back when you were in North Carolina. You deserve to have that swan song like these other guys. I remember that classy move, and I think Ticket mentioned this. I remember that classy move that you made for Jordan in that last All-Star game in his career. You gave up your starting position so that Jordan would be the starter because it was the right thing to do. And for you to be in the All-Star game, Vince, it's the right thing to do. Adam Silver, the NBA, something needs to be made, something needs to be done, excuse me, to put Vince Carter in the All-Star game. And I think that Vince should be featured some way, somehow. If it somehow isn't worked out and he's an honorary All-Star, then Vince needs to be a part of the slam dunk contest and the three-point shootout. That's another thing. Vince became a very, very good three-point shooter. He's a career 38% three-point shooter who's had 3 seasons in his career shooting 40% or better from the line. All right, now to go down his career, Vince Carter was an 8-time All-Star. It would have been 9-time had there been an All-Star game in his rookie year. And mentioning his rookie year, he was the 99 NBA Rookie of the Year. He was on the 99 All-Rookie First Team. He was the 2000 Slam Dunk Contest champion. All right. He was he won the Olympic gold in Sydney. I was right. Okay, it was Sydney in 2000. And he's the greatest dunker of all time. He's scored over 25,000 career points in his illustrious career. He will be a future Hall of Famer. My thing is, if Tracy McGrady, and this is no disrespect to Tracy McGrady, but if Tracy McGrady was a first ballot Hall of Famer, then Vince Carter is assuredly a first ballot Hall of Famer. And last but not least, the man's longevity. He is the only player in NBA history to have played in 22 NBA seasons. This will be his 22nd and final season. And he's the only NBA player in history to have played in 4 different decades. He debuted in the NBA in February of 1999, if memory serves correctly, which was the 90s. He played throughout the entire 2000s. He played throughout the entire 2000 teams. And here he is in the dawn of the new decade, 2020, the 4th decade, still an active NBA player. He's the oldest player in the NBA at age 43. And it would be amazing if Vince Carter at age 43 can replicate what he did when he was 23 years old and become the oldest man ever to win a slam dunk contest. You know what I'm saying? I remember reading about Julius Erving and seeing the highlights of the inaugural slam dunk contest in 1976 when it was still part of the ABA showcase. And he won it with the free throw line dunk, which is something we hadn't seen before at the time. And Julius Erving at the time was 26 years old, I believe. So you fast forward to 1984, when in the inaugural slam dunk contest for the NBA, He didn't win it, but it came down to the wire, if I'm not mistaken, between him and Larry Nance, then of the Phoenix Suns. And Julius Erving was the crowd favorite. Julius Erving at the time was 34 years old. Like I said, didn't win it, but it would be amazing if Vince was showcased somehow, some way in the festivities. If he's not an honorary All-Star, which I think he should be, you gotta put him in this thing somehow. He gotta be. He gotta be. I think he should be in the slam dunk contest and or the 3-point contest. You know what I'm saying? But those are my thoughts, man. And also this. He's the last man standing from the 90s, if I'm not mistaken. Uh, he's the last man standing. Jamal Crawford, I think, came into the NBA in 99 or 2000. I can't remember. But yeah, Vince is the last man standing because Dirk was part of that 98, 99 draft class, but Dirk retired last year. Yeah, so he's the last man standing from a golden age of the NBA. And after Vince is gone, that's it. That entire generation of players are gone. You know, the players that we grew up watching, the Vince Carters, the Garnetts, the Duncans, the Kobe's, the Jason Kidds, the Grant Hill, a little bit earlier. But that late 90s batch of guys, they're gone. Some of them have been gone for a while. Some of the guys that played in the 90s, like uh, Chris Webber, he's been retired for like 12 years. So yeah, it's the end of an era, man. With you know, with Vince's eventual retirement. So tell me what you guys think, man.